Sewer systems. Imagine walking through the streets of Europe in the 16th century. One would probably imagine it is like today, right? But, in fact, the streets were covered in waste, both human and animal. Not only that, but there was the constant danger of getting hit by sewage that was emptied out through the second-story windows. However, this was all solved by the sewer systems, which were first efficiently constructed in the U.S. in the early 1900s after several years of debate over how the problem of water contamination could be solved. Cities like New York City were facing the problem of water contamination and several epidemics of typhoid, cholera, and the plague. The number of deaths occurring per year drove these cities to begin searching for an answer to their problem. Some people who helped clean up the city were those from the Board of Health, who had their first meeting in 1805 to help stop an outbreak of yellow fever. The idea occurred to these people when some health inspectors journeyed to the slums and witnessed the piles of waste and dirt firsthand. They also discovered sick, infectious people crammed into small tenements that were overflowing with disease and waste. These inventors had many obstacles to overcome. One obstacle was the rich landowners in the slums who refused to give the immigrants fresh water because it would cost more money for the landowner. Other obstacles were butchers who selling rotten, infectious meat that caused several outbreaks of different diseases. The prerequisites for adopting sewer systems in the modern city can be broken down into three categories: needs, resources, and values. City dwellers who began constructing sewer systems and incorporating them into modern cities had to fulfill a fundamental need in order to adopt this innovation. Sewer systems have become a part of modern cities in order to satisfy the need for sanitation. According to professors at Harvard University, cholera is usually transmitted through contaminated drinking water, as John Snow first demonstrated in 1855. Also, according to BBC, in the mid-19th century, London was suffering from recurring epidemics of cholera, and in 1853 through 1854, more than 10,000 Londoners were killed by the disease. It was thought at the time to be caused by foul air. The hot summer of 1858 created the Great Stake of London, which overwhelmed all those who went near the Thames, including the occupants of Parliament. Outbreaks of disease, foul air, and dirty water all led to the development of sewers. Disease outbreaks helped lead to the development of sewers because of how many people were being killed by typhoid, cholera, and the plague. These diseases occurred, however, because of the contaminated water, so this also led to the construction of sewers. Finally, foul air led to the construction of sewers because of how unbearable walking around cities became with the foul stench of constantly in the air. The city dwellers of the modern world could not have adopted sewer systems if certain key resources were unavailable. The most important resource that led to the adoption of sewer systems in modern cities had been the nearby bodies of water. According to Discovery, modern sewage systems began to appear in the 19th century, when existing storm sewers were enlarged to carry waste to nearby waterways. Also, the city engineers of the Prereq combined sewage overflows, failing septic systems, and urban stormwater runoff all continued to sewage or untreated water flowing to the rivers. People from New York City, environmental protection state, after exploring alternatives for increasing supply, the city decided to impound water from the Croton River, in which is now Westchester County, and to build an aqueduct to carry water from the old Croton Reservoir to the city. This aqueduct, known today as the Old Croton Aqueduct, had the capacity of about 90 million gallons per day and was placed in service in 1842. The location of nearby bodies of water have been crucial to cities because they provide fresh water that can be filtered through and then distributed to local cities. Sewage and wastewater is disposed to rivers, streams, and the sea in many parts of the world. For many years, this innovation was very effective until people realized that they were polluting rivers and lakes with their waste. Now, all waste is filtered, and fresh water left them from filtering is then either back to the city or placed back in the local river or lake. Finally, these modern city dwellers believe in a set of values that has allowed them to continue to enjoy an urban lifestyle. The most important value that led to the adoption of sewer systems was the value of health. According to Discovery, the growing size of cities and the pollution caused by the untreated sewage forced the passage of legislation that set quality standards for treated sewage and funded sewage treatment facilities. Also, according to BBC, together with the frequent occurrence of cholera, give the impetus to legislation enabling the Metropolitan Board to begin work on sewers and street improvements. Finally, according to Discovery Channel, throughout this era, waste and refuse were simply thrown out into the street. By the 18th century, many large cities had systems for removing rainwater, but sewage was usually disposed in cesspools. Then, when cholera spread through the early 19th century in London, most residents thought the deadly disease was spread by some sort of mysterious airborne organism. Severe outbreaks killed tens of thousands of people 4 times between 1831 and 1854. In several industrial English towns, the worst London outbreak in 1853 killed more than 10,000 people alone. Anesthesiologist John Snow was able to map the Soho outbreak and the relation between cholera deaths and pumps located near sewage in the Thames River. The value of health was important because the cities were forced to create boards of health and appoint inspectors to make sure cities kept clean and their inhabitants were healthy. This being done caused a great population increase because it made cities more appealing for foreigners to work.